Hi, I'm Susan Cauley, and welcome to You're Not Alone Surviving Your Child's Disability. There sometimes is a lot of confusion regarding Social Security for the disabled. Today we have Kristen Alberino, Metropolitan Public Affairs Specialist for Social Security, to hopefully answer some of your questions. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm good.
Oh, no problem. Now, you might as well start it and get down to the nitty-gritty, right?
That's right.
So what is the difference between Social Security and Social Security disability?
Yeah, so this is the most common question that I have as a public affairs person. I'm always on the road doing talks and trainings and talking to parents. And the biggest confusion is the difference between Social Security disability and SSI. SSI standing for Supplemental Security Income.
Right.
And what I usually say is it's the I. Ssdi stands for Social Security Disability Insurance, meaning it's for workers.
Okay.
It's an insurance program. So as we work and contribute to Social Security, we're contributing hopefully for our retirement. But if something's to happen to us as a worker that prevents us from working, a physical impairment, mental, or a combination of both, we could get Ssdi, disability insurance. It's like getting your retirement early, sort of, because you've worked and contributed to it. So it's an insurance program for workers who have become disabled.
What about person that is disabled right when they're born?
Right, and that would be more typically SSI, but SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. It's a needs-based program. The Social Security Administration helps administer the payments for SSI, but it is not Social Security. Nobody has worked and earned it.
Right.
It's strictly based on need. So we're looking at a person's income, assets, but they also typically have to be blind or disabled. If you're over age 65, you can get SSI without having blindness or a disability.
Right.
But when we're looking at children, somebody born with a disability, we're looking at the income and assets of the parents. And that's the case for SSI until they reach age 18. Once they reach age 18, we're no longer looking at income and assets of the parents. We're looking at only what's in that now adult child's name.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's basically the difference. For SSI, we're always looking at what kind of income is going on in the house, what do you have in the bank. The asset limit for SSI is, for a single person, $2,000. So that means that you can't have more than $2,000 in assets at any given moment for SSI purposes.
Yep.
For a couple on SSI, it would be $3,000. For a child living with two parents, it's $5,000. So what do we count as assets? Pretty much anything liquid. We're looking at bank accounts. We're looking at, stocks, bonds, 401ks, anything that a person can get their hands on.
Right.
Has to be under that asset limit.
Okay.
So we don't.
That's for SSI.
That's
now.
for SSI. And SSI also excludes from assets a home. So if a person owns their own home, as long as they're living in it, that doesn't count. And we also exclude one vehicle that wouldn't count towards that. And we assume that that's going to be used for medical visits and things like that.
Right.
So SSI will do annual reviews to make sure that people remain under the income and asset limits. And I think the biggest confusion is that if somebody gets something from the Social Security disability side, we're not concerned with what's in the bank. We're not concerned with, what they have as far as other income, unless it's work, which is a different thing altogether. But Social Security disability insurance, we've worked and earned it. So we don't care what's in the bank. We're not looking at who's living in your household and that sort of thing. It's just SSI because SSI is needs-based. It's basically considered like a last resort type of program.
Okay, so just to clarify it, SSI is basically for children up till they're 18.
SSI it can be for anybody of any age. With blindness,
any age.
Yep, blindness, disabilities of any age.
Okay.
If you're age 65 and older, we're not looking at disability stuff.
Right.
We're just looking at are you 65 and meet that income and asset stuff.
Right. I get that.
Yeah.
So so a child who is disabled qualifies for SSDI when they turn 18?
They would qualify for SSI when they turn 18. A lot of times what happens is if a parent is over the income and asset limits and they have their disabled child in their care, they're waiting until the child turns 18 because at that point we're only looking at what's in the child's name. We're no longer looking at the income and assets of the parents. Even if the
Right.
child remains in the home
Right.
of the parents, we're not looking at income and assets. So a lot of times what has to happen is if you have working parents, parents with some assets, the child doesn't yet qualify for SSI. They wouldn't qualify until they're 18. Because
I
at
see.
that point, we're not looking at mom and dad's income and assets anymore.
Oh, I see.
So that's why a lot of times it's that transition. It's that step into getting them SSI. And of course, the other thing that comes with SSI, which is really important, is mass health, automatically.
Automatically?
As soon as a person qualifies for SSI, they get mass health.
That's one of the things I was
Yeah.
going to ask you about.
And then when we're talking about children kind of transitioning into adulthood, we have another program that's under that Social Security umbrella for disabled adult children. So basically what that is that if a parent has worked and contributed to Social Security,
Right.
they're workers, they've contributed. If something is to happen to that parent, either they become disabled, they pass away, or they retire, we're going to find out, do you have a child, an adult child, who is disabled prior to reaching the age of 22? If they have an adult child that was disabled prior to 22,
Right.
and there's medical evidence to document that, even though that disabled adult child has not worked, they may be able to get Social Security disability from mom and dad.
I see.
So it's like a separate pot of money that's set aside for our dependents. Dependents meaning any child who was diagnosed prior to 22. So, and that could be a more substantial amount of money depending on how much work mom and dad did.
Right. It's depending on their income.
Right. And SSI is a fixed limit. It's a set amount. The
Oh, I
maximum that a person can get on SSI is $733 a month.
Oh, okay.
If there's other income, the $733 goes down. If there's income higher than $753, they're not going to qualify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what are the qualifications that are necessary to either get SSI or SSDI?
Yeah, so we're looking at medically, a person has to have a condition. When we're not talking about children, if we're talking about adults, they have to have a condition or a combination of conditions that is expected to last 12 months and prevent them from working. That's the key in our definition of disability, because if you apply for Social Security disability and you have a legitimate condition, if you're still continuing to work substantially, we're not going to even medically be able to move on. It has to be a condition that's preventing you from work.
I see.
Yeah, so for children, it's a little bit different because we're not looking at that work stuff.
Right.
We're just looking at, does this child have a condition that is different from other children their age? So is there a condition that is limiting them as compared to other children and milestones that they should be at a certain age?
Right.
So the other thing that's interesting to note is that if somebody gets a child on SSI, once they reach age 18, not only are we no longer counting the income and assets of mom and dad, but we also have to do a medical review on the child to determine that they now meet the medical criteria as an adult, because the criteria for a child and adult is different.
Do you do that medical?
The Social Security office will send out the review paperwork, just asking for updated doctors, clinics, tests, all those things. So we'll send it out, but we send all of our medical things go to the Disability Determination Services of Massachusetts.
Okay. Now, when should a person with a disability apply, and what is the best way for them to apply?
Yeah, so we say that the disability has to be expected to last a year, but we never want anyone to think they have to wait a year. If they have a condition that is expected to last that long, they should apply right away.
I see.
So the best way to apply for all of our benefits is online. Right now, the Social Security offices are very busy. We have 10,000 people a day in this country turning 65. So
oh my goodness.
we're at the peak of that baby boomer generation. And because of that, our appointments are out pretty far. So for someone who's going to apply for Social Security disability or SSI, by far the best, most convenient way to do it, and also the most time-saving way to do it, is online. So a person would visit socialsecurity.gov, apply disability, and it'll basically walk them through beginning to end. The first piece is the application. The second piece is going to be a little bit more lengthy because it's asking about doctors, hospitals, clinics, medications they're on, things like that.
Right.
And the final piece, which is wonderful, is a way for a person to electronically sign a medical release form.
Oh, great.
So as soon as somebody hits submit, it goes right to their local Social Security office. They get a receipt immediately.
Wow, good.
The local office gets it the following morning, and within 5 days, we're going to review it and get it for a decision.
Oh, wow.
So historically, a person would have to do it all on paper, wait that appointment time until their appointment comes up. Possibly we're waiting for forms to be mailed and medical releases. Now it's like we get one full product right off the bat, which is definitely cutting down the amount of time it takes to get a decision.
Plus it gets there automatically. You don't have to wait 5 or 6 days or something to get in the mail.
And you have that immediate receipt that you've done it.
Right.
The SSI portion cannot be done online, the application part. So basically if somebody's applying for both or just SSI, they can still do the medical portion online, which is the most time consuming and the best thing to kind of get out of the way. And what will happen is once your local office receives it, it will be assigned and a person will call to do the SSI application part on the phone. And the application just, again, is about income, assets, who do you live with, where you're living, and that sort of thing. So,
just to back up, you can get both SSI and SSDI?
You can do them both online.
Okay.
You can get both SSI and SSDI. So in other words, if I worked and contributed to Social Security Disability, and my payment amount is only $500, for example, so that I've worked, but maybe not that much.
Right.
Because my $500 is less than the SSI amount, I would get a mix of both. So I would get my SSDI first, which would be $500 in that example, and then I would get $200 and something from the SSI to give me a combined amount. So if you have unearned income from unemployment, SSDI, a pension, whatever, and it's under the SSI amount, as long as I also meet the assets, I could get both.
Oh, okay. Now, what kind of paperwork needs to be presented to the Social Security office to apply?
Yeah, usually we don't ask anyone to get medical records or anything like that. We don't want them to spend that sort of time doing it. We'll do all the paperwork with them. If they do it online, again, we get it the next morning, we'll review it, call if we have any questions, do the SSI application. But as far as paperwork, once they sign the medical release and say that it's okay,
then
we'll
you
do
guys
that.
Do all the
we send it to
legwork?
the Disability Determination Services, which is a state agency. The medical examiners, they'll start getting all the medical records. It's very common that if you apply, the DDS, of Disability Determination Services, is going to ask you to visit one of our doctors. And they will provide transportation, they'll pay for it. But it's a very important appointment. So it's something that somebody should expect while they're in that process, that it's very likely they'll get some mail home either with an appointment or maybe even like a report to fill out, asking more about their condition and things. So that's really important.
Now, how are payments allocated? How much, you kind of explained it, but how much does a person get, like say on SSDI, sorry?
Yep.
How much do they actually get? Is it based on their income?
SSDI, the disability insurance, is strictly based on how much work a person did.
I see.
So if I was to become disabled, it would basically be close to the amount that I would have gotten had I reached retirement age.
I see.
So it's based all on how much I've worked and contributed. The more you've worked and contributed, the more years of work, the higher your payment is going to be.
Oh, okay.
When it comes to children getting benefits from mom and dad, it's a portion. We have a family amount, an amount for family members. So Social Security is a protection for us, but obviously for our dependents as well. And so, for example, if I was to become disabled and I had multiple children, there's a separate pot of money that's just set aside for my children that will get a benefit, disabled or not, up until 18 or 19 if they're still in high school.
So they get a benefit even though they're not disabled?
Correct. So minor children can get it up until 18 or 19 if they're still in high school.
So they get SSI or SSDI?
It would be still that Social Security piece. It's because I worked in that example. So if I work and I contribute to Social Security and I have minor children and something happens to me where I can no longer work, either because of disability or I've passed away or I've retired, my minor children will get a benefit up until 18 or 19 if they're still in high school.
Oh, wow.
Now, as they're approaching that 18, 19 age, if we find out that they're disabled, we'll start developing for that so that hopefully we can continue the benefit. So the only way it's going to continue past 18 or 19 is if we have a documented disability. And then we'll be able to continue those benefits from mom and dad.
What circumstances can change the amount of money awarded to a person with a disability?
The Social Security disability is pretty clean cut. Either you're going to get it or you're not. That's your amount. SSI, the amount can change based on other income that you get. So, for example, 733 is the most a person can get this year. If a person gets unearned income, so not work, basically we count all of it minus $20. So if a person gets $520 from some other source, not work, 500 is coming off the SSI. Simple as that. So that means that they'll get 233.
I see.
Bringing them up to 753 combined.
Right.
When it comes to someone who's working and getting SSI, there's a lot of incentive. We want people on disability benefits or SSI to try and go back to work.
Right.
And the incentive to someone on SSI going back to work is at the end of the day you end up with more money. Pretty substantial amount. So for easy math purposes, if somebody goes back to work and gross monthly earns $885 per month. Right. We do this calculation, and all we're going to count of the $885 that they earned is $400. Okay. So we take $400. It's an incentive. It's a work incentive. It's to try and help people feel more confident about going back to work, and also it's just a little oomph. So basically, if this person started off at 733 on SSI, they go back to work and make 885. We're only counting $400 against the SSI. I see. So at the end of the day, they end up with more money. So what's the incentive? The incentive is that you get more money. Right. We are not paying out as much money, and they have a job that hopefully they're in the community. Into something. There you go. Yeah. And as long as somebody gets $1 from SSI, they're still entitled to Mass Health. Oh, wow. And another work incentive for someone going back to work on SSI is that if they're getting SSI benefits and because of work, because they've earned so much, it does cause the SSI amount to go to 0, we'll continue their Mass Health for 12 months. So they don't, even though they've lost their cash assistance, they don't have that fear for a year of losing their health insurance. So that's another work incentive too. Now, what is that also for SSDI? SSDI has work incentives, but it's a little bit different. SSI, it's basically how much do you make? We do the math. This is how much your new payment is. Okay. SSDI for Social Security Disability, we're looking at, if you go back to work, we're going to give you a 9 months of what we call a trial work period. Trial work period. Yeah, so we give you 9 months to work, see how it works out, with no fear of losing your payment. So no matter how much you make anything. Okay. And not have to have a fear of losing your payment. It doesn't have to be 9 consecutive months. Maybe you work for 2 months, but it doesn't work out, and then you don't work for 6 months, and then you go back to work. You've only used 2 months. I see. Okay. So it's not like once you start, your 9 months are ticking type of thing. Yeah. So that 9 months, we're guaranteeing you an opportunity to try and go back to work, see how it works out without any fear of losing your payments. Okay. Once they've used up those 9 months, they end up in this other kind of phase where as long as they keep it under what we call substantial gainful activity, which is a money amount, which this year is $1,090. If they keep it under that, they still can get an SSDI check and work. I see. Okay. So they can work like part-time. Yep. Yeah. The key to that is just making sure we know. I think it's a big misconception that Social Security knows. We'll find out, but we don't know. Yeah. and eventually could mean we've paid you for a long time when we shouldn't have. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to prevent. We don't want to discourage people from going back to work. So the first step is contacting your local office and finding out who your person is as far as reporting work, what the best method is. For SSI, it's as easy as making a telephone call. We have telephone wage reporting for SSI to make sure you're reporting it on time. You call and it's voice recognition, and that's it. SSDI is a little bit more complicated, whether you have to drop off the pay stubs or mail them in. You want to know to who. So that we're updating it timely to prevent any overpayments. Okay, that makes sense. How often is a case reviewed, and why would it be reviewed? Yeah, that's a good question. Everybody's case is different. So we do 2 different types of reviews. We do medical reviews and non-medical reviews. Medical reviews would happen for anybody, SSI, SSDI, anyone. And it's all based on what their condition is. So if a person is likely to get better in a year, we might do a review in a year. If it's something that is never going away, some sort of condition that's for life, it might be 7 years, 10 years. So everybody's situation is different, but the medical review basically will send a notice out just asking updated doctors, hospitals, clinics, and things like that, prescriptions that they're taking, but it's all dependent on the diagnosis. And when a person first gets approved for SSI or SSDI, on their award letter it will tell them what we've found them disabled, like what the condition is, and when they'll have their medical reviews. So it could be 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. It just depends on what their condition is.
So they'll know ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
And for SSI, we do the non-medical reviews usually annually, and it's just an update on income, assets, whether they've gone back to work, acquired any new resources and things like that.
So, again, if you apply for Social Security disability, you automatically qualify for Medicare and Mass Health?
So for SSI, it's Mass Health or Medicaid, and then for SSDI, it's Medicare. SSI, there's no waiting period. Once you qualify for SSI, you get Mass Health. For SSDI, the disability insurance, once you've been on the rolls with us for 24 months, on the 25th month you can get Medicare.
So it's for a whole 24 months?
You have to wait, yeah. And SSI goes from the application date, whereas SSDI, we can try and go backwards to when a person became disabled. So it kind of could eat up a lot of that 24 months if they held off on applying. But yeah, there's a 24-month waiting period, and on the 25th month they would get automatically entitled to Medicare.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is, and sometimes if a person gets SSI and SSDI, they'll get Mass Health for a while before the Medicare comes into play. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that if somebody gets Mass Health and Medicare, Mass Health will pay for the Medicare premiums when they get both, so they don't even see that coming out of their Social Security. If you have an older couple that's married, maybe they're getting covered from their other spouse's insurance. You may not need the Medicare right away. But after the 24 months, usually 3 months before the 25th month, they'll get a notice letting them know that they're eligible for Medicare.
Now, what type of assistance do children with disabilities receive if the parent is disabled?
Right, so if a parent is disabled, automatically their children could get something. So if the parent is disabled and they've worked and contributed enough to Social Security, again, minor children can get something up until 18 or 19 if they're still in high school.
Right, but what happens if the parent is from the get-go disabled?
Right.
And they don't work? Do they still qualify?
No, there's no, SSI would be the only program for non-workers that Social Security administers. So that's always just for the individual or the individual child. It's not a family benefit. It's only for the person with the disability. So there wouldn't be a payment for children in the house. It would just be that mom or dad got their SSI payment.
Okay, I see. It's confusing.
It is. It's a lot. It's a lot, and that's why I kind of have the job that I do, which is going out to organizations, speaking with advocates of persons with disabilities to try and simplify as much as I can the different programs. I mean, the acronyms are exactly the same, but they're two completely different programs.
Yeah, definitely.
Completely different rules, you know. And socialsecurity.gov, you can apply for disability, retirement, Medicare, and spousal benefits, which is wonderful. But we also have wonderful links for certain groups. So, for example, if you're an advocate of people with disabilities, we have an information page for people in that work that will give them links, forms, you know, policy, all that's relevant to them. We have like a financial advising page, so all the links on that page would be specifically for them. So that's really helpful for advocates and things in the community to maybe save that as a favorite, because they'll get updates anytime that page is updated with anything new, and it's just making sure that they know what's new with Social Security as far as the disability programs and SSI.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing worth mentioning at socialsecurity.gov is the My Social Security account. Once somebody turns 18, they can create a My Social Security account, and if they're collecting benefits from us, it's a way for them to see their payment history, update address, phone number, direct deposit, and also get a benefit letter or an award letter. Oftentimes, if you're getting a benefit and you have a landlord or you're in housing, they ask for this letter. It's one of the biggest workloads that we have. It's huge. And when somebody has a My Social Security account, they can print it boom, done. Medicare replacement card can be done, 1099 for tax time.
Wow.
And even when people aren't yet collecting from Social Security, when you create your My Social Security account, like myself, my My Social Security account shows my Social Security earnings statement.
Oh,
Shows
I
all
see.
the earnings I've ever put in, what my benefit will be at retirement, how things are looking, if something was to happen to me, what my child could get. All that really good information is there.
Wow.
So it takes about 10 minutes. It's safe and secure, and we recommend that everybody has this account. But I think that when you're talking about people getting benefits, it really opens the doors to a way to do business with us without possibly having to wait at our very busy offices or call.
Right,
so if you have that little business to do, my recommendation is to have a My Social Security account. Again, you have to be 18 and have an email address.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. So how long did you say the waiting period is to get SSI or SSDI?
So typically, by the time you apply, on average, it's 3 to 6 months before we get a medical determination. That's on average. But we also have some new kind of initiatives to kind of single out those people that are really in need and have a very clear-cut disability. One of those things is called compassionate allowances. So if you're filling out the application online or even with us, and you say that you have a certain condition, it will basically get flagged and approved almost immediately. We would just have to confirm with your doctor one way or another that this is the diagnosis. Started off as like 25 conditions, now we're well over 100. I mean, well over 200 conditions that if you say this is what I have, it's considered a compassionate allowance. It's going to get approved immediately. Just an example of that is like Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, or something like that. You get it, you're done. It's going to get approved right away.
Right.
We also have other, like a specific group at the Disability Determination Services that try to do quick disability determinations. So if you're filling out the application, you say that these are my conditions, these are the medications I take, the test, the program will actually flag it and say this is likely to get approved. And it will go to a separate unit to try and work very quickly to get it approved.
So that's all online?
Yeah. Well, not online, just our system. Even if you work with, a representative face-to-face, our system is going to, based on what we're typing in that you're telling us, will say this seems very likely to be getting approved, so we're going to send it. And it could be because there's multiple conditions, lots of names, certain trigger words. So that's really helped us kind of get those people that are really in dire need, have very clear disabilities, get approved quicker. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what happens if the applicant for SSI and SSDI is denied?
That's a good question. So they have 60 days to file an appeal. They'll get a letter, and on the letter we'll have a date, and it's 60 days from that date. There is no reason to visit your local Social Security office to file an appeal. Absolutely can be done online. It's just going to ask for the date on that letter, and it'll bring you to another medical form that's asking about updated doctors, hospitals, and things like that. The first level of an appeal is a reconsideration, which basically it goes back to the Disability Determination Services, where a new examiner is going to look at it. If that gets denied, they get a letter saying that has also been denied. They have 60 days to file an appeal, and then it would be a hearing. So the second level of an appeal is a hearing.
Oh, I see.
So we have our own hearings offices with administrative law judges, and they have, again, 60 days to file an appeal, but the hearing could be quite a ways out. So it's important that if somebody gets to that point, that they go online right away and get in line, sort of thing. File their appeal, so the sooner they do that, the sooner they are to come up on their hearing date.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, I thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's clarified a lot of things for me, and I'm sure for our viewers. If you still have issues about Social Security, you can visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/YNADIS, or go to www.socialsecurity.gov my account for more information. Thank you for joining us today on You're Not Alone, Surviving Your Child's Disability. See you next time.